Hi, I'm Michael Brooks, filling in for Sam Seder on the Majority Report. And with me now is Christopher Petrella. He is a journalist, he's a PhD candidate at University of California, Berkeley, and he's the co-director of a campaign to bring transparency to the private prison industry. He's also a pretty long-term friend of mine, so I'm happy to be talking with him. How you doing, Chris?
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Just give us a sense uh, of the private prison industry. How much of the prison market is private? How many U.S. prisoners are held in private prisons? Uh, just give us a sense of what kind of a market share we're talking about here.
Sure. So it's a great introductory question. I would say that at the present moment, about 10% of all prisons in the United States are contract-operated facilities, that being privatized corrections facilities. Private prison companies control approximately 10% of the market, which includes about 130,000 beds
Wow,
in the United States.
that's a pretty stunning number. When you contextualize it. Getting more into the specifics, is there are there racial disparities even relative to the rest of the prison population? Which I assume that there are racial disparities to begin with, but are there even heightened racial disparities in private prisons?
There are actually my colleague Josh Begley at NYU and I just completed a report in which we looked at select state departments of corrections in California, Texas, and Arizona. And we found that in these states, persons of color are overrepresented in private facilities contracting with these states by about 15% relative to their already overrepresentation in public prisons based on the population share of that particular state. So it calls into question the relationship of racialized forms of punishment, profit extraction from bodies of color, and contemporary forms of containment.
Okay, so that's 50. I just want to I think that's a real strong statistic to highlight. That's 15% on top of already pretty significant disparities in imprisonment, even relative to the kind of the convention or state-run prison population. That's pretty stunning. Um, so, do these companies, these are modern corporations.
Right.
do they have diversified portfolios? Meaning, do they work in other sectors? Are they running detention facilities for other types of populations that we might not necessarily think of being detained, but are being detained?
Right, that's right. So actually, it's fascinating because when you begin to disaggregate the data, we find that although only between 9 and 10% of public facilities are currently privatized, when the unit of analysis becomes detention centers, migrant or immigrant detention centers, we actually find that about 50% of that quote unquote market is privatized. And the two leading publicly traded for profit private prison companies in the United States, CCA and Geo Group, actually have about 50 to 55% of immigrant detention facilities cornered in the United States today. And this is a vast increase from rates of privatized detention facilities over the past 10 years or so. So I think it's also important to think about rates of change and rates of growth. And though, for example, only 10%, quote unquote, I say only, but this is still a stunning statistic, 10% of prisons are privatized in the United States today. The number of those behind bars in privatized facilities has ballooned by about 1,600% since 1990. So institutionally, this is a very, very recent type of intervention, although one of the claims that Josh and I are making in our study between race and prison privatization is that there are severe historical precedents that have already been set forth vis-a-vis race and prison privatization.
Okay, yeah, and I would love if you could, jump into that a little bit more in a moment. But first, just to be clear, and the types of undocumented immigrants we're talking about, I'm assuming these are people who maybe were uh, here working, say, at a meat packing plant or a slaughterhouse or something like that. Undocumented workers. They're rounded up in some type of federal raid, and they're held in one of these detention facilities, essentially with you know little to no kind of formal rights or process until they're deported. Is that what we're talking about here?
That's right. No, you're absolutely right, Michael. So I would say about a month ago, the Migration Policy Institute released a report finding that the budget for ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ballooned by around 90% since 2005, and this is mostly a direct result of what's colloquially known as Operation Streamline, essentially a policy that forces undocumented migrants through the federal criminal justice system and into U.S. detention facilities instead of routing nonviolent individuals caught, quote, crossing the border into civil deportation proceedings, which had been done previous to 2005. And so the result of which is that last year alone, over 400,000 detainees passed through the federal immigration system. And as I mentioned before, this is a system in which slightly over 50% of all detention facilities are contracted to for-profit private companies. And I should add that that most of these private companies, the largest, in fact, of these private companies, are actually publicly traded. You can buy shares of these stocks.
Well, I do. I'm a smart investor, Chris. So, no, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
I'm just kidding.
That's right.
Yeah. What is the largest? What is the name of the largest company?
The largest company is Corrections Corporation of America, or CCA.
Okay.
They're a Nashville-based firm. They control the last I checked, they control about 44% of the entire corrections market, and the second largest publicly traded company is the GEO Group. They're based in Boca Raton, Florida, and they control slightly over 30% of the market. So these two companies alone control close to 75% of the privatized corrections market, which is a pretty striking indictment against arguments of competition. Right.
Right. We're talking about a real duopoly market here. Now, getting into you have a recent piece out. I'm just going to look down for a second to make sure I have this the full name here, and I think this will get into some of the most kind of interesting and disturbing things that are happening now, and some of the historical precedents that you mentioned before. The new piece you have in Truth Out, I think it is the legacy of chattel slavery. Private prisons blur the line between real people and real estate. And basically what you reported in this piece is that CCA, which is the largest private prison company, and I think GEO as well wants to do this, but I know CCA does. They are petitioning the IRS to get a change in their tax standing so that they're recognized as a real estate company. Now, can you explain a little bit of the specifics of why they would want to do that, what that actually means, and what the implications are for the people that they're detaining if they actually succeeded in getting that reclassification?
That's right. So I think the piece was published maybe two weeks ago or so, and I primarily concentrated on the dealings of the GEO Group, although you're right, Mike, to say that CCA also requested a private letter ruling from the IRS and actually achieved one just last week. So both of these companies have converted themselves retroactive to January 1 to real estate investment trusts from traditional Class C corporations. Now, what does this mean? Is literally the $3 million question. Essentially, a REIT is an entity that distributes at least 90% of its taxable income to shareholders every year in the form of dividends, and in exchange, companies classified as REITs with the IRS receive a zero federal and often state corporate tax liability. So, for example, Geo estimated that it would save about $50 million on an annual basis through this conversion. And some of the criteria that need to be met in order to receive a private letter ruling from the IRS is that a company needs to invest at least 75% of its total assets in real estate and derive at least 95% of its gross income from real estate related sources. And so in the most recent investor presentation by the Geo Group, they claim that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they claim, fundamentally the Geo Group is a real estate intensive industry. They go on to say that the Geo Group has very attractive real estate characteristics. And so I think in a lot of ways, the way they're stylizing themselves here, lobbying for and achieving this status with the IRS, shows in pretty, unimpeachable terms that the Geo Group, by and large, and primarily sees itself as a real estate firm that incidentally dabbles in corrections, not an agency whose primary objective or mission is the reduction of recidivism, community restoration, rehabilitation, public safety, etc. Choose your mission. So this conversion and new designation with the IRS, I think, begs some other questions about the types of bodies that are being contained in prisons that are run by these real estate intensive companies.
Well, right, because what we're literally talking about here is exactly everything you identified. There's a couple of different steps to this. It's advantageous from a business perspective to do this. It shows that their core mission obviously isn't theoretically what it should be, which is reducing recidivism, rehabilitation. But then third, we've already talked about the racial disparities here, and now you're talking about companies that hold prisoners of color in very disparate numbers, basically saying we're real estate firms.
Right.
So that's that I think echoes some extremely troubling precedents and ways of looking at people that you were highlighting in your piece, and it's just really disturbing to see it kind of reemerge in this ultra modern kind of context of publicly traded sort of rational business decisions, but the implications are really disturbing and really unsettling along with everything else. So actually, I think this is sort of moves into this kind of final thread that I wanted to touch with you before we could get to hopefully what we could actually do about bringing some accountability to this, which is, in recent weeks or in the past month or so, there have been these two very funny ways that both of these companies, both of the two main companies, Geo and CCA, have kind of emerged in a more public way. So these are powerful companies, they're publicly traded, but maybe in the past it didn't seem like necessarily they were doing that much work to kind of build their public brand. Two things recently seems to kind of indicate that maybe they're starting to think about that. Now, CCA's CEO back in January put out a press release commemorating Martin Luther King Jr. Day and
That's
talking
right.
and so that's pretty astonishing, and I want you to comment on that. There's a lot of there are a lot of ironies. It's unintended, intended, and then secondly, and this broke more recently, that Geo is going to be sponsoring a football stadium at a state university in Florida, and they will actually have their name on the stadium as a private prison company. Now, I want you to talk maybe briefly just about both of those instances and get your thoughts on them. But I'm also curious, do you think that there's a strategic shift in how these companies are approaching interfacing with the public and how they want to be perceived from a brand perspective and, potentially just even normalized in a certain sense as just another, player in the world of business to kind of be respected and sponsor football games and and art and honor American political icons.
That's right. Well, okay, so those are both fascinating stories and perceptive questions, Mike. So I think I'll try to take them in reverse order.
Go for it.
But as you mentioned, the GEO Group, which again is the second largest publicly traded private prison firm in the country, just yesterday announced its intention to gift, I believe it was $6 million over a 12-year period to Florida Atlantic University, which happens to be a public institution located less than 5 miles from GEO's corporate headquarters in Boca Raton, Florida. And in exchange for this, Florida Atlantic University has agreed to slap the words GEO Group Stadium on its football facility. What's fascinating about this to me, Mike, what's actually most fascinating about this to me, and I know you did a piece yesterday on this for Russia Today, is that the rhetorical strategy that spokespeople for the GEO Group have utilized in justifying these incursions into sort of a more cultural landscape, I'd say, have been shot through with the rhetoric of corporate citizenship, right? What does it mean to be a good corporate citizen? And what I think is particularly ironic and worth noting often here is that despite praising its commitment to corporate citizenship, GEO's recent conversion to a real estate investment trust, right, one which reduces its corporate tax liability to zero and thereby deprives public agencies of tax bases they need, right, demonstrates itself the bankruptcy of the concept of corporate citizenship, right? If you're a company and you truly care about being a corporate citizen, which of course the language around this is suspect to begin with, then I can think of no better way than pulling your weight by paying your fair share of taxes, right, to the state, to the federal government, to make sure that we don't continue to see this creeping sort of disinvestment in public services, public institutions, public agencies, much like UC Berkeley, which is where I'm a student now. I mean, it's a public university in name only. I mean, we receive less than 10% of the operating budget every year from public sources, from taxpayer dollars in California. That's the first response. The second with CCA is just to highlight the sort of egregious irony in Damon Hinninger essentially drafting a press release illustrating the ways in which the company is celebrating Black History Month. And I think this sort of brings us right back to sort of the legacy of Dr. King, who drafted obviously a very famous letter from the Birmingham jail, in which he, in part, denounced the specific types of racialized punishment, and more broadly, the types of sort of punishment that are applied to folk who are agitating politically against sort of traditional and normative status quo institutions. And so I'll just say this to sort of bring this portion to a close. This is why it's particularly important always when thinking about prison privatization in the United States, in particular, to introduce and reintroduce time and again questions of race as one of the units of analysis. It's overlooked. It's a marginalized type of discourse, and that's one of the things that I and a lot of other people are trying to do these days.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. So that's a lot. There's a lot here. There's a lot at stake, obviously. Now, you're the co-chair or co-directing a campaign to at least start to bring some more transparency to this, because I think that this is an issue that potentially, actually, with the football stadium issue, it might get on more people's radar, but it was not on many people's radar before. What are the sort of best steps? What are you guys pushing for in your campaign? What needs to happen to try to bring some oversight and hopefully some genuine reform to this issue?
Right. Okay. So as you essentially introduced the topic, so I, along with Alex Friedman of Prison Legal News, are directing a campaign with a coalition of, at this point, over 50 not-for-profit criminal justice and public interest organizations, urging Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas to reintroduce what's called the Private Prison Information Act during this congressional session. And the bill, if enacted, would extend Freedom of Information Act, also known as FOIA, reporting obligations to private corrections firms that contract with federal agencies. And so our sense is this is the first important step in bringing transparency and accountability to the private prison industry, because if citizens and policymakers alike are in a position to adjudicate the merits of public versus private corrections facilities, then we need to have all of the information at our disposal in order to make any comparison of an equivalence or any equivalent comparison. And we currently can't do that because the private prison industry is shrouded in a veil of secrecy. They claim that according to, I believe it's the fourth exemption under the Freedom of Information Act, they do not have to report basically any information pertaining to their operations, because it says it would violate their proprietary interests under the Freedom of Information Act exemption. And so we're trying to change that through a legislative channel right now, and we have a lot of excellent organizations on board where the act has not yet been reintroduced, but we are very hopeful that over the next few weeks we'll have some good news.
Yeah, and there's a lot of momentum behind this. I mean, your work has been featured by Andrew Sullivan and Fortune magazine. There's a lot of really big organizations pushing for this, and I mean, why on earth would these companies have any obligation to share their information when all of their profit base comes from public contracts? I mean, it just seems ludicrous on its face. It's sort of take the public contracts, hide the information, and then become a real estate holding company so you don't have to pay any taxes to wash back for your next contracts. I mean, it's kind of just I don't know how all those things are squared, but I know that it has something to do with admiring Dr. King and liking football.
Right.
So, right.
That's right. It is stranger than fiction, Michael.
Yeah. Stranger than fiction, but really incredibly important and really incredibly disturbing. And I thank you for your work, man. And that's Christopher Petrella. He's a journalist. He's a PhD candidate at the University of California, Berkeley, and he's co-director of a campaign to bring accountability to the private prison industry. And as I said before, also a good friend. Great talking with you, Chris, and I'll talk to you soon.